The ground is your canvas, the blood of your enemies is your paint, your gun is your brush, and the masterpiece you create is all dependent on how long you can survive. Spanning multiple years of near constant development, improvements, ports, and even a sequel that never happened, this is the story of the amazing dual-stick shooter Crimsonland. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of It's 2009 All Over Again. And today I'd like to talk about something I love, and I love Crimsonland.
Sure, while it looks like a by-the-numbers shooter at first, Crimsonland excels in that sweet spot of easy to pick up but impossible to master style of gameplay that could be entertaining to a Neanderthal such as myself. Combining dual-stick, or would that be twin-stick shooter gameplay with both RPG and roguelike elements, no two games of Crimsonland are ever the same. That explains why Crimsonland has been a part of my main gameplay rotation for the last 14 years.
What's that, I hear you ask? It's true. Crimsonland has been in some sort of perpetual development since its initial release, and that's a good parlay to the beginning.
The year was 2003. Pirates of the Caribbean was in theaters, Shake Your Tail Feather was on the radio, and I was rocking frosted tips in my hair. At the same time, over in Finland, a little company called 10 Tons Limited was established and debuted their first game on the then new Reflexive arcade platform on PC.
With that said, the website for the Reflexive Arcade is www.reflexive.com, and this website is truly awesome. It contains hundreds of games for your gaming pleasure. Each game has a free trial that can be downloaded and played so that you can be 100% sure that you like what you're getting before you buy it. Reflexive Entertainment also has an unconditional 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're unhappy with a game you buy for any reason, you can return it with no questions asked. This site is chock full of gamers' reviews from people just like you to help you find the games that you like to play. There are also recommendations made just for you based on your ratings and feedback of any other games that you've played. You'll also find tips and tricks for many games that will give you a player's edge while you're playing. And don't forget that all purchases are connected to your account forever, so it's easy to get the game whenever you want it in the future. Let's take a look at some of the games they offer, starting with Big Kahuna Reef 2 Chain Reaction. Go Hawaiian all over again. This spectacular and explosively charged match game of adventure will captivate you as you dive with humpback whales, discovering new and exotic fish.
With all due respect, Reflexive Arcade was a bit ahead of its time, as it catered to both casual and indie titles in addition to their own internal IPs. Oh yeah, what was that first game that 10 Tons debuted on Reflexive Arcade? What else would it be but Crimsonland? Which I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess it was named after the blood and bodies you leave in your wake. While simple to pick up, Crimsonland proved hard for me to put down. Introduced to me by a friend who heard about it in the old Something Awful forums, my friends and I were hooked from the start.
And by hooked, I mean hooked. My best gaming story actually comes from Crimsonland. My friends and I were playing single player, taking turns at the keyboard, when all of a sudden the power went out at my house after about 4 hours of playing. At that point, we jumped in my friend's car, drove to his place where he bought it, and we played it for another 3.
Alright, so I know I'm hyping this pretty hard, so let's see if I could do it any justice. So first, you'll start by only having the challenge or quest mode available to you. As you complete challenges and quests, you'll unlock better weapons and perks for you to pick up, and of course, the challenges will get progressively harder as well. The challenges, while only acting as a tutorial for the game, have a great flow, easing you into getting introduced to the various enemy and weapon types you'll come across. Because once you're in the thick of it, you're not going to have time to get acquainted with either. Challenges start by serving you slow, weak popcorn enemies, then rewarding you with progressively better weapons, and of course, harder enemies as you go on, including spiders that multiply almost indefinitely, hulking amazing bulks, aliens of all sizes, and spiders that cough fireballs out of their mouths, among other things. The controls are as simple as a twin-stick shooter gets. You move with your left stick, or WASD, aim with the right stick, or the mouse, or shoot with a click or the right trigger, and the shooting you will do. The weapon variety in this game is insane, with every weapon having its own advantages and drawbacks. Well, most have advantages. Bullets do normal damage, while Gauss guns will penetrate multiple targets, leaving a very cool straight line of blood in its wake. Plasma weapons fire white-hot death, while ion guns will bounce to multiple enemies until they fly off screen. Under each of these main groups, you'll find a shotgun, rifle, minigun, or a big old cannon to rough these aliens up with. There's also miniguns, rocket miniguns, this weird pulse rifle with no reload and a ton of knockback, the awesome jackhammer weapon. It's painkiller amounts of weapon insanity. What's always set Crimsonland apart from any other shooter I've encountered lies in the perk system. As you kill enemies, you'll gain experience towards your next perk. These perks can range from increasing your firing and reloading speed, to your running speed, to giving yourself radiation sickness in order to poison the monsters all around you. Some perks offer some sort of a gamble, such as Highlander, where you no longer have a life bar but now have a 5% chance to die with every hit you take. These all come together to offer a random element of giving you a slightly better advantage of living longer, and can be combined into some devastating builds once you start to learn all the ins and outs. Another so-called X factor in addition to the perk system come in the form of the numerous power-ups that spawn while you're fighting for survival. These can mean the difference between life and death in many situations. You'll come across spinning plasma wheels, fire blast nukes, weapon power-ups, the game-changing freeze pickup, and pickups that slow down time. Aw, they even kept that Reflexive arcade logo in there just to remember their roots. Couple all of this in tandem with the perks and you can get far under the right conditions. Let's say for instance you've got the Good Luck perk with telekinesis. The Good Luck perk allows power-ups to just appear out of nowhere, while telekinesis will bring them in without you having to walk over them, drastically reducing the trouble of maintaining some sort of breathing room around you. All of these little mechanics help to make Crimsonland more than, well, just the sum of its parts, really. There's a certain longevity to this game that I rarely find anywhere else. Maybe it's just me finding the game at the right time, and maybe some of you could share that kind of experience with some other game. For me, it's the feeling of starting all alone in some desolate space and watching the carnage as I cause blood decals and monster bodies to litter the landscape. It all has this crazy roller coaster effect on you. As challenges are completed, you'll start unlocking other game modes. After all, challenges are made to be beaten, but Crimsonland is not made to be beaten. Survival mode is where the real meat of Crimsonland lies, and this will be the place where all the perks and weapons you've gained will come into full use. You start alone on a flat, barren wasteland, armed with just a regular pistol. Enemies slowly start to shamble in from the sides of the screen. You pick up your first new weapon on your first kill, and before you know it, you're running in circles and fighting for your life while fighting to survive long enough to get a decent score on the leaderboards. And that's basically it. Live long, survive, make a score. The Waves mode, while similar to Survival, has you fighting waves of enemies as things go from progressively slow to Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo in no time. Blitz is like Survival for the Dark Souls crowd. The speed and difficulty are cranked to 11, and it's up to you to survive as long as you can. Nukifism is a different take where you have no weapons to help you out, only power-ups. Rush combines the speed of Blitz mode with only being armed with an AK-47. Try to survive that. Weapon Picker forces limited ammo on everything, forcing you to run from weapon to survive as long as you can. Typo Shooter, while only available on the PC, is kind of like Typing of the Dead, only more intense, as you type words and phrases over the heads of incoming enemies.
So this is probably the point where I'd stop and say, well, that's the story of Crimsonland, but actually, there's a lot more.
In 2005, the official Crimsonland site announced that work on Crimsonland 2 had begun, stating that a basic engine was up and running and that it was 100% being built from the ground up, but set an expectation not to hold your breath for any kind of release date. In hindsight, this is probably a blog post they regret posting to this day. Then, around 2006, in an effort to quell the rabid core fanbase, 10 Tons released 3 screenshots of Crimsonland 2. One of the title screen and 2 showing some sort of gameplay with aliens and what looked like alien generators as well. This, however, would be one of the only things we would ever see of Crimsonland 2. During this time, 10 Tons continued publishing casual games like Bubblefish Bob and Grim Joggers under their Myth People brand. After a somewhat fitting blog post about the new office not having any coffee, news on the sequel slowly ground to a halt. No pun intended, right? That is, until 2008, when we got some new Crimsonland news, which turned out to be a weird mobile version of the game created by HeroCraft called Crimsonland Mobile Massacre, which by all counts wasn't too hot to begin with. That version is all but extinct from the internet now, since it's a relic of the Android 1.0, 2.0 era, I'd believe. In what could possibly be some sort of damage control, another image of the Crimsonland 2 editor was shown, showing a variety of terrain types and some enemy placement. It also looks like some physical obstacles were also present, which could really cause some trouble if you were backed into them with the right mobs. November 2008 saw a new version of Crimsonland released to celebrate its 5th birthday. This new 1.9.9 release saw some modern tweaks to the game, like Xbox 360 gamepad support and the addition of 3 more perks. On a June 30th, 2010 blog post, it was announced that the affiliation between Reflexive and 10 Tons was ending. At that point, they directed everyone to purchase the game from the Mediafire site for 60% off the Reflexive price. From there, they would go out of their way to say that they would say nothing more about Crimsonland 2 until the time was absolutely right. The next update wouldn't come until 2012, when Crimsonland was added to Steam Greenlight on the day that Steam Greenlight actually launched. The post actually ended with "Next Step Crimsonland 2" in very tiny letters. In the midst of delays involving Steam Greenlight, the devs opted to take the game over to GOG or GOG and update it to their new multi-platform engine, which would serve as a foundation a full 2 years later when the Crimsonland re-release finally came to Steam, GOG, and PS4, with a release to the Xbox One in 2015. And this version came with a much improved interface, improved visuals, gameplay tweaks including removing some of those more redundant perks, 4-player couch co-op, and the Blitz, Nukefism, and Waves modes added, although the Typo Shooter was removed for a short time on the PC, but has since come back. This version can even rock up to 4K visuals and is a definite improvement over my old Sony Trinitron from back in the day. "2017 also saw the re-release come to the Switch, so you could have the full Crimsonland experience on the go if you don't want to deal with the Apple or Android version. The Steam release actually comes with the old 2003 Crimsonland in case you want to see the real grandfather of dual sticky shooter action, well, in action. So while news of a Crimsonland 2 has never really emerged, even after all of these re-releases, a spiritual successor of sorts is out there, called Tesla vs. Lovecraft, and it absolutely needs to be played. It has all of the same gameplay, only modernized into an actual narrative and overworld map, many of the same guns, and even the perk system is back in its full glory, with many of the same perks making a reappearance. And some new ones like adding multiple additional barrels onto any gun. In addition to all this, you'll piece together a nigh unstoppable mech. You can teleport through objects and across gaps in the landscape to avoid trouble. And there are multiple special moves you can pick up, like an X-ray blade or an on-demand exploding barrel for multi-kills. Definitely worth a deeper dive one day. In a Reddit AMA for the release of Tesla vs. Lovecraft, the dev stated he wasn't part of the original Crimsonland team, but he was an avid player at the time. He did end up contributing once he got hired in and actually added the 7th quest and waves modes to the game.
I did reach out to 10 Tons Entertainment to maybe see about getting some context to some of the darker periods of all of this, and more importantly, to see maybe if I could get some information on what happened to Crimsonland 2, of all things. Unfortunately, I never heard back from them, and considering the content on my channel at this point, I can't say that I blame them. So hopefully this video will show that I am capable of showing some sort of love and compassion, and maybe they'll have a change of heart in the meantime. But on that note, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. It's been a pleasure. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And till next time, see ya.
Give the people the least quality they'll stand for. Make it seem fresh for the longest possible time.